Hey y'all, Nico here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for joining me. I'm Nico. Today's video is another yoga pose tutorial video where I show you how to properly do some of yoga's most commonly used poses and also show you some tips and modifications. So for today's yoga pose, we're doing bridge pose, which is also known as Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. If you have one available, go ahead and grab your yoga block. You can get a yoga block from Walmart, some of those yoga stores and stuff. Target, I think, has them. I also have a link down below, an Amazon link for a yoga block that I recommend. And if you don't have access to be able to get a yoga block right now, if you have a short, thick book, like maybe you have like a dictionary or something a little bit smaller, you can use that too. And if you don't have that, you can use a couple of pillows, or you can use a pillow and like fold it in half just to make it a little more firm. That'll work too. So just use what you have on hand. There's no need to go out of your way until you have time to get yourself a yoga block. So I'm going to start by showing you the standard way to do the pose, and then I'll tell you about a couple of the tips and modifications if you want to use them. So we're going to come down to our back with our knees bent. Starting with our knees hip distance apart, bring your palms facing down onto the ground, and then just walk your heels back until you start to feel your fingertips. I like using this method as a way to see where my feet need to go, but you can also just bring them as close to your buttocks as you can. So palms are facing down onto your mat. And another thing we want to check in is that our lower back is touching the floor. So some people might have that kind of natural separation between their lower back and the floor because of the arching of the spine there. So what you want to do is, if you have that, go ahead and tilt your pelvis towards you so that your lower back meets the floor. So then we take our hands are pressing into the ground. I always like to make sure my fingers are spread nice and wide when I'm pressing my fingers into the ground. That lower back is touching the floor, pelvis is tilted towards you. And we're going to squeeze the glutes, squeeze that pelvic floor, and start to lift our hips off of the ground. So our hips are going to come up, and think about almost bringing your thighs parallel with the ground and your butt close to being in line with the back of your knees. It doesn't have to be that way all the way. So sometimes your knees might want to splay out. So think about there being an imaginary block in between your knees. So you want to just try to kind of bring your knees together. Not touching them together, but again, imagining you're holding a block there. We want our feet parallel with one another, and we want our knees parallel with one another. So we lift our hips. So your hands might be fine just here staying down at your sides. If you're able to, clasp your hands underneath your body and kind of roll your shoulders under. And then we're going to try to lift the top of our sternum towards our chin. So it should look something like this. And come out of it, I just release my hands, come back down to my back. You should really feel that in your glutes and the back of the thighs. I always do when I do this pose. I'm not gonna lie, when I first used to do this pose in yoga, it was one of my least favorite poses because it just takes a lot of strength to lift your hips and keep them there. So this is where our modifications are gonna come in. So go ahead and grab your block. And something you can do if you are struggling with holding the pose there, or if that's just a lot on the back of your thighs, it might be a lot on some people's ankles. You never know what people are dealing with. You can take the block and bring it underneath the hips. So kind of near the sacrum. That's where I like to place mine when I'm using the block. And that's just gonna help lift your hips, help you to get your hips up high. And like maybe you just put it there and you're practicing, you can put it underneath you and practice lifting up off of the block. Mostly it'll be on the medium side. And this is just gonna help you get into the pose so that you can still get some of those benefits. Like this is considered kind of an inversion with that heart kind of coming up over your head, so it's gonna allow some fresh blood to come down to your brain, so you can still get those benefits with the block there. Another way I like to do this pose sometimes is to just reach my arms overhead. That's a great chest opener. So I'll lift my hips and come into the pose. Remember, think about pressing those knees together, and I like to just extend my arms overhead. Now, if you want to add a challenge to the pose, you can go ahead and bring the block in between the knees and actually hold it there to kind of promote and encourage strengthening those quads. So bring the block in between your knees and hold it there the whole time. And it's going to, again, encourage some strengthening in those quads, in those thighs. So that completes our Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, or our bridge pose tutorial. Let me know what you think below about these pose tutorials, if they help you, if you watch them often. And if you're struggling with a certain pose, leave a comment and I'll try to do a video for you to give you some tips and some modifications on how to get into that pose. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you later. Peace and love.